Hi, this is Josh with Retro TV One Tech, and today is the day I've been looking forward to for a very long time. Today, I'm finally going to do a repair and restoration on this IBM ThinkPad 701C with the butterfly keyboard. So yeah, this is the famous 701C that has the butterfly keyboard that folds up, and so that part works fine. But there's a problem with the hinge right here, where it's cracked and it's actually rotated completely the wrong way, as you can see right here. So I definitely need to get all this apart, figure out what's going on with the hinge. I'm going to use some JB Weld to epoxy it all back together and make sure that it's all completely functional. I also need to go inside the system and replace the CMOS battery, which will also solve a memory error that I've been having. And also I need to replace the speaker and clean off some corrosion because the main system battery actually leaked inside the system. Luckily it still works. But the main system battery actually leaked inside, so I need to clean off all that corrosion and just make sure it's ready to go and ready to enjoy for the rest of its hopefully very long life. So let's get started. So before I get started, I actually labeled all of the screws that are going to go into these little, actually you just used a little food storage container here because I don't actually have a spare official screw holder or anything like that, but they're labeled based on the IBM manual where it's just labeled basically BA all the way through BL. So I just used a few different containers here, and that way I don't forget which screws go where because there are several screws and several different lengths, so I want to make sure I keep all that straight. And to make this disassembly much easier and much safer, I'm using the guide over at 701c.org, written by Matt. It's a wonderful guide. And he's been helping me out over email as well, just with some questions I had about replacing or repairing this hinge. And so I'm going to be starting just with a simple disassembly to get a look at the hinge and see what I need to do to get it repaired. So step one is to remove a couple of screws here. I'm going to be using my T6 driver. So there it is, T6. These are all Torx screws. And this one's labeled BC, so when I get this one out, I'll be putting it in the BC compartment there so I don't lose it. There it comes. So there's a tiny little screw, so I'll put that in the BC compartment. Now this next part's going to be a little tricky because I can't close this, and you can see why. That hinge is just completely messed up, and I don't want to damage it any more than it already is. So I have to be very careful, but I do need to remove, let's see if I can just set it like a tent real quick for a second. Okay, the thing that fell out was one of the mouse buttons, which is already loose, so I need to remove this screw. I eventually am going to be removing all of them, but let me see if I can support it from underneath, but I need to remove this screw right here first. There it is, that's a long one. Step two is to use my plastic spudger here to remove the top plate. So this is where I have to kind of jimmy in here a little bit. Get this spudger tool in here and see what I can do. Now this is where I'm going to have to lay this hinge down quite a bit to get this out of here. Let's see if I can lay it down more healthy without breaking anything. There, it actually moved. Okay. So now I need to get this out of here. We're almost there. There's just two little plastic clips that need to come off here. The rest of it's off. Yeah, it's just these two little plastic clips in the back here. I wonder if I didn't release the two clips in the back quite enough. Alright, I think the tools that I used before were too thick to get in there, so I'm going to try just a little screwdriver. Try not to scratch it any more than I have to. Ah, there we go. That was it. You guys may not be able to see this very well because I'm going to have to kind of work on this way. Okay, so that, good. So I think I got one side off. Yep, okay, so now I need to do the other side. So note to self, I need a different tool. There it went. Okay, I think I got it. I just need to flip it around here. I heard it release. There we go. Okay, so it's released there. Now I just need to get it from the back here. And you should be able to just kind of work this way. Okay. It's almost released. I'm trying to be really careful. I think I got it. I got it. Good. I was really worried about that part, but it looks like everything stayed intact. There's the two clips I was trying to get to. So there you go. Oh, look, it's got a year on it. Date code, April 3rd, 1995. Nice. Okay, well, we're going to lay that aside for now. All right, so now we can kind of see what we're dealing with. So now you can see the right hinge, which is so messed up here on this side, and then the left hinge, which works fine, plus the keyboard operating mechanism here. All right, the next step is to carefully remove the hard drive. Now this piece is already broken, and so I have to be very, very careful when I do this. And I'll try and repair this part as well, if I can. All right, believe it or not, they recommend a coin to get this part out, but it's only connected on this side, which is why I'm kind of working it from over here, because I just do not want to break it any further. All right, that was extremely difficult because I'm working on one side, but I finally did get it. So I definitely have to replace this hard drive enclosure or get another one 3D printed. But there's the hard drive out of its little enclosure, and you can see how this part just split. So just old plastic, so I'll have to do some JB Weld on that too. So now we have some more screws to remove here. One on this side, and this is the whole goal, is to remove the keyboard. And I have 3 BC screws, and that's 1, 2, and 3. I'll take those out. So then I need to remove a 10mm BE screw, which is up here. That one's pretty tight. Now this is the tricky part. Now we're removing the keyboard, and we have these tiny, tiny little T1 Torx screws here. They're supposedly very, very easy to strip the heads on, so I'm just going to very, very gently remove these. Wow. Why they ever wanted to use T1 Torx screws, I will never know. Just have to be very, very gentle. Come right out. Good. Okay. That one definitely had a little bit of corrosion on it, which made it harder to get out. So there definitely is going to be some battery corrosion inside of here, I think. Right. Yeah, you don't get too many tries with a screw that small. Look at, you can't even, not even be able to see it. It's absolutely tiny. I mean, look at the Torx head on that. It's just insane. So somehow the camera was off when I thought it was on when I was removing the right hinge here that I'm holding in my hand. However, when I did remove it, the little bracket that connects the hinge to the LCD display cover broke off of where it's supposed to be adhered onto the display cover. So we'll definitely have to JB Weld that back on and straighten it up. You can see it down there at the bottom of the picture. And again, it's flat, but it's supposed to be actually at a 90-degree angle. So we'll definitely get all that repaired before we put the hinge back together. However, while I was working with the hinge, I realized that it was completely frozen and couldn't be moved even with a pair of pliers. So that was concerning. So now here's a little closer view of the hinge itself. I'm looking in here and it looks like something's jammed into it. I don't know if that's part of the case that came off or what, but I'm going to need to work with that and see if I can get that out of there. I think that's what's causing this not to be able to move. At least that's my guess, but I don't think that's supposed to be jammed in there like that. The other hinge doesn't have anything in that spot. Okay, so I think that grease actually hardened into like almost like a glue. You can see right here, I've got it cleaned out a lot better. I think I'm just gonna have to soak it in some IPA and see if that will loosen it up, because I can't get all the way inside here. All right, so I'm gonna let this hinge soak in some IPA. Maybe that will loosen it up some. And of course I'm gonna be relubing it, so if it dries up all the dried up grease in there, that's probably a good thing, or at least maybe it'll soften it up a little bit. So I'll let that sit for a little bit while we do the rest of the disassembly, and I'll also check out this hinge over here and see how it moves, because I know it's moving, so I just need to kind of see how that works. Looks like I have one more screw to remove up here to get the keyboard free, and apparently you can't do this until you remove the display, because otherwise the hinge and everything is in the way and you can't get a good angle on it. Sorry, you can't see it either because of the keyboard cable here, but I did get that out. And that one is a BC, so I'm going to put it in the BC area here. A lot of BC screws, so they all must be interchangeable. The keyboard is supposed to just lift out of place at this point. All right, the keyboard's a little bit tricky, but you have to move it, you have to push it towards the display and kind of rock it back and forth a little bit. That's what I finally gathered after watching several videos of it being removed. There we go. Nice and gentle. Easy does it. Okay. The next step is to very carefully remove all these clips and cables here. Okay, so the first step is to get this track point cable out of here. You just push down on these little connectors here. You just have to kind of keep working them back and forth until you get it free. I think I got it now. Sure did. Alright, so the instructions say to remove this track point cable as soon as you can, because it does, because otherwise there'll be stress on the cable, because it's the shortest of the cables. Now I'm going to try and remove these. There we go. It's almost easier to do it with my fingernail. Work it gently out. Those connectors are so fragile. Okay, those are free. These are called ZIF sockets. The zero insertion force. But you have to make sure they're completely disengaged before you remove it. Alright, so now the keyboard is disconnected. So this is, and yet, by the way, now that it's apart, you can really see the whole assembly and how it works. You can see how there's a channel for the keyboard to slide around on, and that's how it operates. So there you go. You can see all the screw connections on the back of it and everything else. So I'm going to set this aside in a safe place, and we'll continue disassembly. Alright, the next step is to disconnect the microphone here. I got to disconnect this power cable here, if I can. Alright, there that comes. That's the power cable for the LCD. So apparently it has to be kind of wrapped around like that. So I'll have to kind of remember that for next time. I have to get this little guy out of here. There it goes. Don't know that I'll ever need the microphone, but you know, we might as well have it put back together and ready to go, all in the right order. All right, and then I need to disconnect the display ribbon cables here. That should work the same way as the other ones. We'll see. There's this little piece here. There we go. Then the display ribbon cables look like they come out right here, like this. So there we go. That retaining clip wasn't in any of the manuals, but looks like it's useful to keep it all separate here. So now the display is loose and we're down to the motherboard. We've got the daughter board here, and then underneath of that, where this other chip is here, that's actually the display chip right there. It's a Chips and Technologies one, so it's all separated out into two pieces now. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and take the display apart, because we need to get this all glued back together before we're going to be able to put this back together at all. So we have 4 screws around the front bezel The front bezel is already broken in one place, so that should make it easier to remove. I'm hoping we don't break it in any more places. These are very fragile. Got all those screws out. Now we need to remove the screws from the bottom of the left hinge. There's a special left hinge cover here, and this actually helps the keyboard slide against the display when it's closing, which tells the keyboard when to open and close. All right, and then this piece should just come right off. Yep. Okay, perfect. And just want to check this hinge real quick while all this is still together. All right. It's pretty tight too. So both of these hinges are really putting a lot of stress on the plastics in the case. Okay, so now is the very touchy part, is to try and get the bezel to come away from the display housing. So it says it might be glued on top. So my thought process, it feels pretty rubbery, so I hope it has a little glue on it, maybe. I'm just going to be really careful because it's already broken. It does kind of help that it's already, oh yeah, it does kind of help that it's already broken there. I don't want to break it anymore, especially in this corner up here. Just going to work it real slow. Yep, the top is glued. Oh yeah, it sure is. So just working on that, just real nice and easy. Don't break anymore. Thank you so much. I'm using my fingernails right now because I can feel the amount of force I'm putting on it. Oh, there it goes. Never mind. Because it's broken, it just, everything just came right out. So I'm just going to very gently remove that. Okay, perfect. So that came out. So that was the other part I was really worried about, but it looks like we're all good. So that is a very clean break. That's where it broke. There's a little bit broken down here too. I should be able to get some JB Weld on that and get that set in there real nice and strong. The good news is that we should be able to save this. Now the display should just lift up and out. Let's see. So here's the display. So I do have to take this out because I need to get to the hinges and the inside of the whole thing here. So we're going to try and figure all that out so we can get it all back together the right way. And now we finally get a look at the lid itself and the damage right here. Okay, so this is where the hinge is supposed to sit. This is where the other hinge is sitting. So yeah, so that's supposed to be at a 90-degree angle there, and then this bottom piece is supposed to have contact with this. So I just want to kind of get this all set up the way it's supposed to be so that I have an idea of how I need to repair this. Fortunately, that's a real clean break. Wow. That almost goes back together on its own. Boy, I won't need too much JB Weld on that. It is funny though, look at that tiny little piece of plastic there. No wonder there's so much stress on it. And the hinge is supposed to be at a 90-degree angle, so I'm going to have to bend that back. See, the only way the laptop was opening, which I didn't know until I got to it, the only way the laptop was opening was by flexing this hinge, so I'm glad this piece of metal, so I'm glad that didn't break. So I hope I can very carefully bend that back together and get a pair of pliers in here. I just discovered something. It's supposed to sit in here like this. It actually has been bent way past 90 degrees. Wow. Oh my goodness. I really hope I can get this bent back very carefully here. If I just work at it just a little at a time, we should be able to get it close enough. Don't break, little guy. See, the problem is rounding it out here, so we'll have to figure out a way to get that back into the shape that it's supposed to be. Alright, I have a new plan. I was noticing the bottom piece was bending, so I got a vice grips. I've straightened that out, so now I just need to take the pliers and hopefully I can bend it back into shape with both of these tools. Now, that seems to be working. I don't know that it's going to be perfect, but at least we're going the right direction and the vice grips are holding it steady. It's a thick enough piece of metal that it seems like hopefully it'll, yeah. Seems like hopefully it'll eventually go back into shape and not break. Let me grab it like that so it's really flat. Getting closer. It still looks horrible, but it's better than it was. We had no idea when we were opening this thing that we were actually bending the metal of the hinge. I just thought it was really tight because the other side is really tight, but it's actually moving. Ah, there we go. Oh, we're so close. It's like bending a paperclip back into shape. It's not going to be perfect, but hopefully it will be usable. All right, that is way closer. It looks horrible, but I think with some JB Weld, we should be able to use that. There we go. So that will go down into there like this. This will go right here, and that is the way it's supposed to sit. That is not bad at all, considering where we were. All right, I'm going to take a minute and work on this hinge here for just a little bit. It's had a minute to sit inside of there. It's still not wanting to move, but I'm wondering if I can get it to move. I'm not onto it very tight here, but I think maybe if I have more leverage, I can get it to turn. Ah, yes. Look at that. It moves. Oops. That was just my pliers coming off of the hinge here. I don't have it very tight. It moves. Wow. So the alcohol really did help that quite a bit. So I'm going to grease both of those hinges before we glue all this back together. All right, the next step is to do some white lithium grease on these hinges here. And we're going to really work at it to get it inside of there. And I've got my rubber gloves on, so I'm not touching it, of course. Now let's see if I can just get some inside there. And then, yeah, there we go. I'm just going to soak it real good. I've got my paper towel here. Soak it real good and let it get inside there, and then use the pliers to work it back and forth inside of there. Of course, you don't want it too loose because you don't want it, you know, just flopping around, but it seems to be loosening up as I work with it. All right, and of course I'm gonna put a little bit of white lithium on the left hinge as well. Don't want to remove it. I'd like to keep it in there for now, so we'll work it in back and forth. Oh yeah, that helps a lot. All right, so it's time to do the JB Weld, and this is the black variety to hopefully match the black case of the laptop as best as possible. It's a 15-minute dry. It's got 2 different tubes in it. When these come together, that's when they become adhesive. So that wasn't a little bit, but that's fine. Okay. So then apparently the whole goal here is to mix this stuff together as best you can. So mix it up real well there. I'm just going to put a tiny little bit on here. See if I can get it to go together here. Just like almost like a toothpick. I know I don't want to clog up my screw hole there either, so I'm going to put a tiny little bit there. I'm just going to put it on the top part. Maybe a little bit right there. So now the goal would be to set them together very, very gently and hope we can get it to bond. Hold it together there for just a little bit and see if it'll bond together. All right, my next order of business, as this stuff is already getting kind of hard, is to reattach this piece that fell off to the bezel as well. All right, so I got both of these pieces on here. Now I'm just going to hold them until hopefully it starts to bond a little bit. So now we're going to go ahead and get the hard drive out of its enclosure here and get this hard drive enclosure fixed and JB welded back together. So basically the way this hard drive enclosure works is there's kind of a PCMCIA style connector at the back there, but it's actually not wired up the same. I found out online. But either way, it doesn't matter. You do unfortunately have to kind of mess up the hard drive plastic cover there. It's kind of stuck on there with adhesive. So, but then the adapter just gently comes off, and that's a standard 44-pin IDE laptop adapter there. So, and you can see what I need to do here to fix this. It's a pretty clean break, and you can actually see the corrosion right next to where it broke there. So I assume that the battery acid got in there and actually made that weaker, so that when we popped the hard drive out, it actually was already broken. I didn't even feel it break when we popped it out the first time when we were checking out this computer and trying to get it all fixed up. So we're going to get this JB welded back together and ready to go. Alright, so now I've got the right hinge ready to be glued back into place, or epoxied I should say. Alright, well, after several hours of drying, not several hours, but over an hour of drying, it looks like everything is good. Did get some paper towel stuck there, so I'll just have to file that off, but I'm sure that'll come off just fine. It's not perfectly straight, but it is pretty darn good. And this is solid in here, and the screw holes line up, everything lines up. I just have to put the hinge on there. And once you get it all put back together, you won't even notice. So anyway, that piece is good. This piece is also good. Looks pretty good there. Of course, you're going to be able to see where it is, but it's very strong. So now I just have to attach this piece down here, and we'll be ready to let it dry overnight, and then probably go ahead and test the hinge. All right, I'm ready to add some epoxy to this little piece here. All right, so it's the next day, and everything is in place and nice and strong. You can see here, got a little extra there. I might be able to sand that off, but it looks pretty good overall. Everything is nice and strong and in place. So this bezel is finally one piece again. And this hard drive caddy looks really, really nice, and definitely nice and strong. So that should be fine to pull on now. And the display actually looks pretty good. The hinge is now in there. It's not perfect, but it's in there, and the screw holes are good, and I have fixed the back, put a little bit more on there. It's probably a little bit too much, but I want it to be really strong, and again, I can sand it down later and make it look nice, but at least it's nice and strong on this hinge, and this little piece of plastic is not going anywhere. So now I want to reassemble it, add the actual hinge on here, which I have greased and made ready to go, and let's see if everything will put together correctly so that we can actually try this hinge on the case real quick. All right, so I got my BI screws here that I will be able to use to reattach this hinge, hopefully, if all goes well and lines up correctly and properly. Well, the good news is that actually works. So everything, the screws actually went in the holes, which means I lined up everything properly and correctly. And that feels pretty good there. So I should be able to turn the hinge now. Yes. Okay, it's still tighter than I want it to be. So hopefully this doesn't pop apart now, but let me see if I can turn it with the pliers. I know the hinges are always going to be tighter than what you think, but yes, it does actually move. And it's about the same tension as the other one, so it should be fine once we attach it to the case. Excellent. All right, we put the display back in. Put our newly fixed display bezel back down and make sure we get the T-clips on the bottom re-engaged. Hopefully we can do that. All right, this is the screen guide for the left hinge, put that in place. 4 BD screws for the bezel here. There we go. I had to push on it a little bit, but I finally got this bottom right screw to engage on the bezel. Well, that is really, really exciting. So the display is back together, and yeah, you can tell it's got some battle scars, but it is back together and pretty close. I didn't get this piece down here on the bottom perfect, but it is pretty close here. So I am very, very happy with that. Let's look at the back side here real quick. Yeah, again, not pretty, but it is very, very functional. So and that is the best that's looked in a long, long time. So there you go. Almost forgot, I need to put screws on the left hinge here, right at the bottom, and then it will be all back together. All right, so I did a little test. The hinges seem to work better now. As you can see here on this footage that I've sped up to save time, I really had to struggle with this hinge mechanism. I detached and reattached it several times just to try and get it lined up, and I knew this would be the hardest part of the process just because, you know, hinges have to be aligned so precisely, and of course, even though the plastic broke cleanly, it's just really hard to get it to dry exactly where you want it to. So I really had to work with it a little bit, and of course we got these ribbon cables here that I wanted to tape up and get out of the way to protect them, and so it was a really difficult process. And that, you know, display is actually a lot heavier than what you think if you're just working with it free off of the, you know, when it's disconnected from the hinges. So it became very difficult to work with, but at the end I finally did get it aligned at least as close as I possibly could. And as you can see here, it did finally open and close, but unfortunately it just really wasn't quite right, and it's hard to see that in the video, but you can see if you look closely the hinge was slightly at an angle, and I just didn't like the pressure and stress that was putting on everything. It also wasn't closing properly in the front, it wasn't latching, so that was an issue. Alright, I had a minor setback. This hinge was not straight, so I was trying to push it back into straight, and of course it did break the epoxy, so I'm gonna have to re-epoxy it, but at least this time it'll be very, very straight. So I'm gonna take it apart again and get it all straightened out. Alright, I've got it apart again, and I will this time make sure that the entire hinge is straight while it's actually attached. Alright, I think the epoxy is dry. I did put a little extra there to make it stronger, but then now this time it's straight. So you can tell that it's straight with the case. Now, it is a little bit high compared to this one, but that is the lowest I could get it in there and make everything fit. So hopefully that will work. I did a fit test back here with the case, and it seems like it works. So I'm gonna go ahead and reassemble it and get started with the next phase of this project. Display assembly is back together, and it looks like everything's good here. Again, you can see the battle scars and everything, so I didn't take time to make it perfect, but it's definitely much better than it was. Everything went back together just fine. All the screws went back in, so I'm super excited about how that turned out. All right, now we're gonna focus on this mess right here, and you can see it even goes over here. So it's like glue sticking the whole board together. In fact, it even goes all the way into the headphone jack right here, so that's why the sound is messed up. So we're gonna get all that cleaned out and get this thing back into shape. So we'll start just seeing how much we can remove just by using the screwdriver. Oh, yeah, it comes right off of there. And then we'll use some IPA to clean it up a little better. All right, let's soften it up with some IPA a little bit. So Matt, who sent me the iFixit guide and who wrote the whole thing on how to do this, said that white vinegar would help get the last little bit off. So I'm gonna try some white vinegar here and see if that works. I got my white vinegar. I'll apply with my toothbrush. It's already got IPA on it, but I don't think that'll matter. Put some vinegar on there and see if that'll start getting it off of there. Let me see here. Oh, wow. Yeah, I think that's definitely helping. Wow. Okay, look at that reaction. Yay, chemical reactions. It just bubbled right off of there. I've got a little bit in between the contacts, but we'll get it here in just a minute. All right, so we've got that pretty clean here. I did get one of the pins come down a little bit, but I think it's still connected. We'll check it here in a minute. So the next thing is to take off this top card. Apparently, we just push from here and try and get the, we just kind of lift it up so that it separates from the board. One thing before we do that is we need to get the speaker cable disconnected here. Alright, so that little connector broke off while it was coming out, but luckily I'm replacing the speaker, so that doesn't matter. We just need to get the rest of the board out. Alright, so the board's disconnected, so I just need to get these off. This is where he said, the service video, he said these can really get stuck, but wowzers. Let's see. There, that one came. Okay, I just got to get this one. The whole board's up except this one little spot here. All right, we got it. Yay! Whew, that was hard. And I don't think we broke anything, so that's good. All right. Next step, let's take a look. Ah, yeah, we got to clean out under here too. All right. Now that makes sense why the headphone jack was messed up. If you're curious about what the bottom of the second board looks like, that is it. And this is the inverter card. So I'm gonna, let's see, there's the IR window on there. I'm going to take off the inverter card here. It just slides right out there. That's perfect. And also that little microphone cable, or that little speaker cable that did not want to come out, that connector. There it goes. All right, yeah, I got it. Boy, that little thing, it did not want to give up. That's funny, everything broke except that little thing. So luckily, I have a new speaker that I'm gonna put on there. But in the meantime, we need to get this other board cleaned up. I didn't have the camera on a second ago, but I got a great, there you go, got a great reaction there when I put the vinegar on the old battery acid there. Let's see if we can get the inside of this headphone jack cleaned out. Yeah, the acid went all the way up inside that headphone jack. You can actually see connectors there, so that's a plus, and we'll put some deoxide on it to make sure that there's a good connection there. Alright, now I'm going to remove the motherboard. There must be a screw down here somewhere, but there's a spacer in the way, so I'm not quite sure how to remove that spacer. Unless there's just not a screw there. Maybe there isn't. Maybe mine only has 3 total. Let's see. Oh, this one's missing a couple here. I didn't take those out. Interesting. Not sure if this has been fixed or repaired at some point, but I only have 2 screws there. Sorry you couldn't see that, but yeah. So there was a screw right here. There wasn't here, like they're supposed to be. So that's interesting. And it was loose already. Now, one thing they say to do is to push the modem kind of back out of the way so that it doesn't have any issues while we take the board out here. So looks like it's just coming right out, so let's see if we can wiggle it out of here, or if it's still stuck somewhere. Alright, so we've got this away from here. We just need to get it off the bottom of the PCMCIA slot. Just a little bit of adhesive right there. Got it. Yep, there's just... Okay, so there's just a little bit of tape right here and here. There's the speaker. And here's the board. There you go. This is the modem. You have to be careful because that goes in that hole and you don't want to break anything down here. This is the bottom of the board, and that is the battery that needs to be replaced. So we're going to do that here in just a bit. So that's the battery. There's the processor. And you can see it's a DX475. I've got the battery here, and I could just desolder it straight up. I was going to use these cutters, but I don't think they're small enough to get in here just to cut the little leads on here. I mean, I probably could, but let me try that one more time, see if I can get this big guy in there. I think I can do it. Oh yeah, I got it. There we go. Oh, and the other one just came right off. Perfect. Well, that took care of that. So now this is the original battery. That was not marked in any way, but thanks to Matt, I have the replacement right here. But before I do that, I've got to get my soldering iron out and clean up the mess on these two pads. First thing I'm going to do is apply some flux here. Okay, let's try this solder wick. Well, that worked really well. That's nice and clean. Okay, let's try the next one. All right. That would look pretty clean. Okay, so the next step is to put a little solder right here on those pads again. Alright, I think I got it. Alright, I had to do a little touch-up work off camera, but I think that looks pretty good. Alright, I've got my multimeter out to test the battery pads here. Alright, so we need 2.5 to 3, so we got 2.7, so we are good. Next thing is going to be to detach the speaker from the bottom of the case here. And it's a good thing I bought a new one, because definitely totally destroyed the speaker connector while I was detaching it earlier, so... Well, that's going to come off in several pieces, I guess. There's the speaker. Alright, poor old speaker. And this is glued down, so I'm just going to need to scrape this up. Actually, there's quite a bit of adhesive there. I may just use that and not put a bunch more glue on there. This is the new speaker. Not quite the same shape, but it will work just fine. I'm thinking we're going to place it this way. Yeah, there's enough adhesive there. That is not going anywhere. I think that's probably the best way to do that. And the clearance on that is actually shorter than the original. So that's perfect. Alright, so now reassembly of the case, or of the computer itself, I should say, is just putting everything kind of back where it was, which I'm sure will be easier said than done, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, that's that down in there. Just let that kind of ease the modem jack back in there. And we'll make sure that pops right back in. Everything sits right down where it's supposed to be. There's the modem jack back out where it's supposed to be. Now for some reason my unit only had one of each of these motherboard screws, but that's okay. We will just connect it the way it was when we first got it. Alright, so this is a BL screw, and it goes right here. There's supposed to be one here, but there's a spacer instead, so I guess some of the motherboards are slightly different. That's okay. And on the back with the dot connector, we only had one BC screw down here. So we're going to put that in. There we go. And I'm going to plug my speaker wire in. We've got our secondary board here, the daughter board, and I want to plug the speaker wire in if I can before it gets on here, because this speaker port is really tight for some reason. There was no corrosion on it that I could see, but really, there it goes. It was really tight, but luckily we got right in there, and we don't need to take it out. Next, we need to hook up our inverter card. This is what gives the monitor power, so we want to make sure that's in there correctly before we get this all seated down in here. Just need to make sure all those pins are in contact, and they are. Now we'll figure out how to set this bad boy back down in its little home here. Alright, I apologize, I reseated the daughter card here while I was watching the original service training video, because I just wanted to make sure that I had everything where it needed to be, and it looks like I do. So the trick to that is get everything lined up on this side first, then make sure the inverter card is lined up in the slot, and then you push down right here where the board-to-board connector is. It's very gentle, and then these little spacers need to be engaged as well. So that's it. Alright, now we get to install our newly fixed display. Now I've taped these cables up and out of the way so we don't damage them, because these cables can be very, very fragile. Alright, so the trick here is to just get everything lined up, support it with one hand, and just start getting the screws in here. Okay, so now let's test opening and closing the case here. Seems to be working just fine. Good. I don't want to smash any wires, so I'm being really careful here. My tape is not holding real well here. Let's see if everything fits down in there now. It should close all the way now. Alright, it definitely feels better. This bottom piece feels like it might come off again. It's not on there real great, but so I may have to reattach that at some point. But overall, huge improvement over how it was. Conclusion, fixing hinges on laptops is hard. Alright, the next step is going to be to install the display cable. Alright, so we're just going to get this cable right in here, and the other one right in there. You got to make sure these connectors are completely open before you slide these cables in. There we go. We're just going to push that down in there just a little bit. Alright, we just gradually work those connectors back and forth. There's two little plastic pieces on each side. I don't know if you can see it or not because my fingers are in the way, but you work both sides so that it doesn't pinch the cable too much. Okay, now we need to install the LCD power cable, which goes right here on the inverter card. So we're just going to carefully work that down in there. Yep, seems like that is in there and secure. Alright, so one thing you want to do is make sure your microphone cable is looped underneath of your LCD cable, and then you just plug the microphone cable in right here. I don't imagine I'll be using the microphone much, but hey, it's good to have it. The speaker and the microphone need to sit down between the PCMCIA slot and the inverter card, kind of like that. There we go. It's pretty good. Just make sure we have some clearance here for those. Just kind of tuck them right in there. Alright, next we need to install the keyboard and the keyboard connectors, and we want to install the big connectors first. Sometimes it's easier if you flip it upside down and do it like this. Alright, install keyboard connectors, so just make sure they're open first. Slide it right in there and lock them down. There we go. And we just want to do this a little bit at a time on each side here, so that we don't smoosh the connector too much. Move this down just a little bit to give myself some more room here. Alright, and remember they go out and down. There we go. That one's locked in already. And then the last one is the little bitty track point connection right here. Not sure if you can even see that. Alright, you may have to take my word for it. I'm not sure how well you're going to see it. My camera's not high enough, but okay. So we got everything connected. So now we just have to slide it into place. This ribbon cable kind of sits up here above the keyboard. You can even see the little retaining clip, and I guess it just smashes right in there. So that's fun. There we go. Get it to sit down in there. Alright, I got the right side engaged, but not quite the left side. If I can get them together here. Just takes a little maneuvering. Well, this part's easier said than done, but I'll get it. I just have to play around with it until I feel it snap into place here. Ah! There's one side. Okay, I messed around with it off camera and I got it. Wow, that's tough. You got to get all those clips just right in there. Okay, there we go. That's tricky. We got it. All right, now we need to install this screw that kind of goes under a hinge, so we're going to have to be careful, but I think we can get it in there. Yep. All right, so I got this screw back here in place. You kind of have to work at it because it's at a weird angle. Some guides recommend that you install the keyboard before you install the display. So I don't know. I think this works better. The official manual itself says to do it this way. The official video says to do it this way. So it works. You just have to be really careful not to strip out the head. So really work it in there and just go nice and slow and make sure it's not at an angle. Okay, now the fun part. Now we get to install these tiny little T1 screws in here. So we're going to give this a shot. It's hard to even find the head on these things. And this go real slow. Okay, so we're not going to tighten them all the way. We're just going to get them in there, and then we'll snug them up. Good grief! Why they decided to use such tiny screws, who knows? But I guess it works. I feel like a giant when I hold these screws. Alright, so you don't want to tighten those very tight. They just need to be in there and just barely snug. Alright, so now we have to put the keyboard cover on. And this is going to cover up all of our wires and stuff here, so we'll take one more look at that. By the way, if you're wondering how the keyboard close and open mechanism works, it's actually this rubs against that and makes it close. And by the way, let me show you the first time this thing has closed since I fixed it. Check that out, huh? No problem. And just pop it right back open. And it actually works. Haha. That's awesome. Alright, now pull this down. And we're going to put this keyboard cover on very carefully and make sure we get all the pieces and parts inside. It's catching on something. Let me see what it's catching on. It might be that. I think it's this little sleeve here. This little sleeve is not quite in the right place, but I think if I just move it just a little bit, I should be able to get down over it. There we go. Okay, so now we're almost there. So now I just have to keep pushing it until it goes all the way down where it needs to go. All right, I'm almost there. Almost there. Let's see. Wow, did that actually go on? That's cool. All right, now we're going to carefully close this and make sure we don't break anything. Very slowly and gently. Yep, looks like it's clearing it. We should, at this point, we should be able to see the keyboard start to close. I'll give it a little assistance there just because it's the first time. Look at that. Wow. Look at that. It works. It actually works. It's not that pretty back here, but it actually works. I am just shocked. Look, it's pretty tight actually. Wow. Okay, yeah, fixing hinges not easy. I can't believe I got both hinges to engage there. Now if I pop it open, it should just spread its wings and fly. Look at that, friends. It's still a little, questionable, but it works. My goodness. Now I just have to put the rest of the screws in, plug it in. Snap, nice and snug. Okay, wow, all the screws snugged up, which means we got everything together correctly. I didn't get the IR window back in there just because it wouldn't really go on, and honestly, I wasn't that worried about it. I may do that another time, but it was going to require me to push on the inverter card in a way that I didn't want to, so I left it out for now. So now I need to get the hard drive ready to go and get it installed. So the hard drive goes in this little caddy, and I did fix the caddy with some epoxy as well because it was broken. Actually, the battery corrosion had eaten right through it. So you just have to attach this little connector here and making sure that all the pins are in there. We do not want bent hard drive pins in any way, shape, or form. And these these are jumpers. These are jumpers right here, so we don't use those. Our blank pin is engaged on the bottom, so we're good there. Okay. So we just have to push that down in there. Oh, there it goes. Okay. I just didn't seem to want to go, and I didn't want to force it. All right, now I just have to push this back into its little case here. Not the easiest thing in the world to do, but I did it. All right. So let's get the screws in on it, and we should be off to the races. Pretty much everything on this computer is a T6 driver, except those screws in the front, which are the T1, so I guess at least they were mostly consistent. I heard the guy on the service training video say that they were changing some of the screws in future revisions of the computer to Phillips, and he was glad about that. I can link that video below if you guys want to see it. It is pretty interesting to see this guy telling everybody how to fix the computer. Actually telling just the service advisors how to fix it. So this has been one of the hardest projects, if not the hardest project I've ever done. So whether it boots or whether it doesn't, I'm really proud of myself for getting it fixed the way that I did. And even though it's not perfect, I feel like I really, if I can get the screw in here, I feel like I really did my very best and did a ton of research and really worked to make sure that everything was right. So now we're going to slide the hard drive back in its little home over here. This side goes down. We're not going to try the battery yet. We're just going to save that for later. See if the battery works, but we want to save that for a little later. Okay. Now is the part that is exciting and nerve-wracking all at the same time. Does it turn on? All right, I got it plugged in. We're going to get it opened up here. And I sure hope it turns on. I've got everything back in the way it should be. All right. Wish me luck. Here we go. Whoa. Is it actually working? Is it actually working? It is working! Mind blown. Mind blown. Mind blown. Oh my goodness. And the memory error is gone. Oh, I'm so excited. Wow. It actually works. I have been worried about this for weeks and weeks and weeks that I wouldn't be able to fix this thing because it's so difficult. But I did it. It took hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, but I did it. And you might be saying, wait a minute, why are there errors? I will tell you why there are errors, because we just got a new clock battery installed and we need to set the date and time. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I also want to reinstall my little left mouse clicker there. Here we go. Okay, let's set the date. All right, so it is 01. And actually right now, it's past midnight, it's 05. And we're 24. All right, so I guess that would be on 24-hour time. It'd be 00. We'll go 17. Okay, we don't want a power on password. So let's save and exit and see if it boots up to Windows. You've changed an option that will only take effect when your computer is restarted. Yes, that's fine. Okay, here we go. Alright, so it's got that strange error now still, where it thinks the computer's on suspend mode, but I should be able to fix that. It's loading into Windows right now, and I can't see the screen. So something's going on with that. Usually if you let it sit for a while, it will fix itself, but I don't know. I'm not sure where the suspend mode switch is. I need to find that out. Alright, so for now, I've disabled all suspend on lid close and all that stuff, so we'll see if that helps. If not, I'm going to have to call in a pro to see why it's going to suspend mode all the time. I'll let it boot, but I may have to reset it to get that option to take effect. I hear the speaker. It's not very loud still. Alright, so we've got this. What if I switch monitors or something? Can I get it to come back on like that? No? Alright. Let's go ahead and restart it and see if it will do that suspend thing. And it will not suspend this time. So I'm sure when the hinge broke, it must have broken that suspend control there. But maybe, just maybe. Nope. Okay, it turned the screen off, but it didn't go to suspend. That's interesting. Alright, well, it sort of works. Well, we may have to, again, ask a pro for some help getting that screen display to come on. It seems to have gotten worse since I worked on it, but I'm not sure what the issue was. It must have been something to do with that hinge. But either way, we're going to try and install this battery and see if we can get the battery to charge since I've cleaned off the contacts. So we'll see what happens. There we go. It seems to have snapped right in place. All right. So I'm going to plug it back in and we'll see if it shows a battery charge or anything like that at all. That'd be kind of cool if it did. We'll turn it on and we'll see if it notices that there's a battery installed. That might be a bad battery, so we can try a different one. So let's see what happens here when we turn it on. It's definitely not showing any battery in place here. So all I have to do is just get the screen to stay on, and we're good. Let me stop this for a second. Oh! It says battery charging, so the LED maybe not be working for some reason there, but it says battery charging. That's cool. Well, that's very interesting. We'll see if it actually does charge. Alright, so here's a little update. Everything seems to be working fine, at least as far as the computer goes. It loads Windows, it does all the things it's supposed to do, it just thinks the lid's closed. So if I can figure out what's causing that, then the computer will be ready to go. It'll be perfect. So or I can use it with an external display, but that kind of defeats the purpose of a laptop. So I think if I did plug in a VGA port to the back of the dock, I think everything would work just fine. So I'm hoping, I've got an email into Matt, the guru on these things, and I'm hoping he knows where it is, but I have a bad feeling that I'm going to have to take it apart again, which is not good, but at least everything else I did worked. I'm really excited that the battery worked. My soldering actually was good, and everything else. I just wish there was a way to force the display to stay on no matter what, and there doesn't seem to be an option to do that, even on high performance and all that kind of stuff. Like I have display timeout disabled, all these things, suspend on list, lid close disabled, all these kind of things. I will keep searching on this topic and we'll figure it out. Anyway, the saga continues. All right, so a very, very good update here. As you can see, the screen is on and the laptop is actually working. So, wow. Really excited. Now, I think this is a fluke for right now. What we finally determined after talking to Matt, who is kind of the ThinkPad guru, and yes, the computer's on the floor right now because I'm just kind of messing with it. Either way, after talking to Matt, we found out that the open and close lid sensor, which is just under this part of the keyboard, inside the case, of course, is malfunctioning and it's stuck in the lid close position. And I didn't know that whenever I had the computer open, but there's a little access door from underneath where I can see there's a little lead that I can clip, I think, on here, or desolder to keep that switch in the open position where it would show that the case is always open all the time. But either way, it's working for now. I was just kind of messing around with it back and forth. It's also charging the battery, which is pretty cool too. So yeah, overall we have a very, very nicely working 701C ThinkPad here, which is awesome. Either way, it is working for now, so I'm going to enjoy playing a game. In fact, let's just go ahead and try a little Commander Keen on here because I haven't done that for a while. It's actually working. I'm not going to mess with it too much because I don't want it to change its mind. I think it just got confused somehow. I have got suspend on lid close disabled like I showed you earlier in the video, so I don't really know why it's decided to keep the screen on now. Because what had happened was it would not suspend, but it would basically just turn the screen off. But yeah, it's working. Yay! That's cool. I don't know if it'll work when I restart it the next time, but hey, it's working for now. I also can show you the speaker that works a lot better than it did last time, so we'll see how loud it is now. It should be much, much better overall. It's not perfect still, but it's definitely louder than it was. Oh, you can hear it a little bit. It may be something we work on more as we go. But yeah, either way, super cool. It's kind of hard to play with one hand, but you get the point. So much fun. Yep, that is working great. Awesome. I am just so excited this thing's working. I know it might not be permanent, but it's so cool to see it working after all of that work and all that ordeal to get it going. And I'm also getting the battery charging here. It's at 7%, so I'm going to do a test here. I'm going to unplug the power cord and see if I can run this thing for at least my first time on a battery. That's pretty cool. And we'll see if we can let this thing charge to 100% and see if it actually works. And then hopefully we can get this thing permanently fixed by cutting that lead so that it's not worried about whether it's asleep or awake all the time. So here we go. Let's see. Let's see if the battery actually works, if the computer will actually run for a couple minutes on the battery. We'll see. Wow. It is working. It shows like airplane mode or something. That's a little airplane on there. But it actually is working on battery. I cannot believe it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's actually doing stuff. That is crazy. It's actually running on battery. Oh my goodness. It's just so cool to see one of these old systems actually working on a battery. I don't know. Something really special about that. It's actually working well on the battery. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy after all that work, all that planning, all that effort, and it's just working. So happy. All right, well, I've restarted it a couple times and it's still working, so I don't really know why, but hey, how about some epic pinball? Why not? Love this game, especially on this system. So much fun. No bonus. It's just awesome. What a fun game, and what an amazing little system. The fact that it works on batteries, that's just icing on the cake. Always love this game. Speaker's quiet, but you can hear it. It's still probably not quite right, but that's okay. Let's see what the battery's looking like now. 6%. It's going up. It's pretty cool. I don't think the battery percentage is very accurate, but I'm going to leave it plugged in and just see how far it'll go. It's just so rewarding after all that work to have something actually pay off that big. It's so awesome. It's the next morning now, and I plugged it back in this morning, and I've been kind of checking it periodically, and the battery is now at 92%, and the computer still turns on and off with absolutely no problem. So I'm going to let the battery charge to 100%, then we'll see how long it lasts. So, pretty awesome. Wow. I just can't believe how well this thing works. And, you know, again, it's got battle scars and things, but it's just so amazing to restore a classic and beautiful machine like this and have it actually work. As we approach 100% charge here, I was looking at some of the documentation that came with the computer, and it says in order to charge, the computer must be either powered on, suspend, safe suspend, or standby. So it actually doesn't charge when the computer is off. That's crazy, and we're at 99% now, almost 100. But it's just so cool. And I'm just really surprised. It's one of the only computers I've ever seen that doesn't charge when it's actually in power off mode but still plugged in. So that must just be one of the older things about an older system. So I waited a little bit and I can't seem to get it to go up past 99%, but that's pretty darn good for an over 25-year-old battery. And it's getting kind of warm with the charging. So I'm going to go ahead, I think, and stop it right there. But that is just incredible. And it says it's going to be 2 hours and 26 minutes of use time. Oh, there we go. So actually, I just unplugged it and it's done a reevaluation of the power time. It shows that little airplane mode thing, which is cool. But now it says 100%. So that is so cool. Battery is at 100% charge. Wow. Well, there you have it. We have completed this restoration, and I am super excited and super happy with the results. Now, of course, it's not perfect, but it works really, really well. The hinge closes in the front just fine. So that was the hardest part, really, to get right. And then, you know, back here, of course, I could sand that off a little bit, and I may still, but I was just a little afraid to do it because it just seemed like it really needed a lot of JB Weld there to be strong enough to open and close. So it definitely sticks out a little bit, but it opens and closes just fine. So I consider that a battle scar and just a sign that you know, Carla here is one tough computer. So we'll open and close here again on the table just to show you how well that works. So there you go, and it really just opens and closes flawlessly now. So, and I had the really bright light on the camera on it before, so a lot of the repair work looked actually a lot worse than what it looks in regular daylight. So it's daytime today, and I thought I'd just show it in natural light, and you know, it looks really, really good. So we even our 701C decal even is intact after all that, which is good. And then let me close it. The only thing I have to do to close it is just push this part just a little bit. This bottom part fell off here, and so that's something maybe I can reattach another time. I held it together for like 10 minutes, but it dried just slightly crooked. And so I just had to push down on this, and then it just closes easily. So it's just such a satisfying little thing, and it works so, so well. And I'm just so impressed with the fact that I was able to do that. You know, it took a while, as you can tell, and this is a long video, so thank you for watching. But this is one of the most exciting and rewarding projects I've ever done, and one of the most challenging. So anyway, one more time. So yeah, you just have to basically just touch it with your thumb and it goes. So I'm super excited, super happy with that. The only thing I didn't get working is the speaker. Now the headphone jack works, and unfortunately with all the cleaning I did rub off the headphone decal a little bit as I was getting the deoxit and stuff in there. So that's unfortunate, but the headphone jack works. It's just the speaker is the only thing I didn't get working. It kind of works, but not as well as what I'd like. And I do need to eventually put the IR cover, or the IR receiver cover back on. Now, this is fine, though. I had the port replicator on the other day, but this cover is intact and fine. And the PCMCIA cover here, I believe, was already broken when I got it, but you can get a 3D printed replacement of that, so I may do that someday as well. The hard drive, of course, was repaired, so it opens and closes just fine and sits back in there just fine. And the biggest, most exciting thing is the battery. Like, I have a working battery for this thing, so that is super, super awesome. So let's start it up one more time and just really enjoy seeing the fruits of our labor one more time. You can see the RAM check. So of course you can't hear any sound effects, but for a while I was cleaning it out, you could hear this kind of crackling noise because of all the corrosion that was inside the headphone jack. So one of these days, I think I might be able to just like swap the line in and headphone jack, since I'm never going to use the line in jack on the board, but that's a little bit more soldering that I want to do right now, and I don't want to risk messing it up because it works so well right now. And I'll plug in the headphones and show you that I can have sound that way too, so that's good enough for now. So I've got Canyon.mid loaded up and ready to go. And one more thing I'll show you is that the battery right now is at 73%. I've just been keeping it mostly charged. I'm going to be careful about, of course, not keeping it in the computer very much, but it works really, really well. It's actually, as you can tell, running on battery now, so super amazing. But yeah, let's play some Canyon, and I'll just put the headphones up to the microphones on the camera here and see if you can hear this beautiful MIDI file. So here we go. There you have it. It works really, really, really well. So I couldn't even get the headphones all the way into the jack before, and now it works 100%. So the fact that the speaker doesn't work is not that big of a deal. But actually, you can kind of hear it in the background just a little bit. The speaker kind of works alongside the headphones a little bit, but it's really, really faint. So maybe we'll try cleaning it out another time, but either way, for now, works really, really well in the headphones. And let's do a little Commander Keen 4, just as a celebration of finishing. I know we did it earlier too, but I just feel like we need it one more time just to celebrate the fact that this was successful. And I don't have the sound on right now just because I need two hands to do the keyboard and control Commander Keen here, so I could do direct capture and everything, and I probably will if I do future videos on this computer, but as you can tell, it works perfectly. The screen might look a little dim because I've got the blinds open on the window and everything, but it actually is pretty bright in person. It does warm up as it kind of goes along too, so that's nice. And the screen doesn't have any, weird discoloration either in any parts of the display, which is nice. So there you have it. Works perfectly. All right, well, there you have it. A successful repair and restoration of this beautiful IBM ThinkPad 701C with the butterfly keyboard. I'm just overjoyed that it worked. This is something I've really planned and researched for months. It's something I haven't done before. Working on these older laptops is super challenging because it's really easy to accidentally break something, both on the system board components and just on the plastic case itself. And so I'm just super excited that it turned out as nicely as it did. Of course, I'm sure there are other people with more experience that can maybe make it look a little bit prettier, but honestly, for me, I'm happy, and I pick this up daily and play games on it because it's just so much fun to use. Number one, it's really small and compact and portable, which was the whole point, but number two, it's just a cool system, and it's got such a great screen. It does the 640 by 480, you can tell here, so there's no stretching of the text, and there's no black borders around it, so it's really the perfect machine for MS-DOS gaming. And it's got Windows 3.1, which is super fun as well. Just a nostalgic throwback to my childhood messing around with Windows 3.1 as well. So it's just a lot of fun to mess around with and super rewarding project. Thank you for watching this video. I know it was long, but I hope it was rewarding for you to watch too. Sometimes it's fun to watch these restorations and just see these older machines brought back to life the same way maybe it would be to watch a beautiful older car be brought back to life. So anyway, leave a comment down below if you've ever experienced one of these amazing machines, or if this is the first time you've ever seen it. And if you have any suggestions for anything I could do better next time, I'm all ears on that as well, because I'm always looking to improve. But overall, for the first time, I think I did a pretty good job on it. And maybe in the future we'll do a little more with fixing the sound, or maybe sanding out some of the JB Weld and making it look just a little bit prettier. But for now, I'm just excited that it works. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. So for now, enjoy that tech and keep it retro.